For that great introduction. So today I want to talk about service workers. Now, can I see? I don't know if I can see anybody. Can I see anybody work with service workers before? Yeah. So I feel like I was a little bit of another service worker talk. So I wanted to do a little bit of a pivot and focus on some of the interesting ways that we can use service workers to enhance images and video. So I talk about it as for the little guy. Uh, as was mentioned, I'm Colin. I'm from the CTO office at Cloudinary. I wrote a little book about high performance images, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to join you today. Although I did try to make some of the logistics work out. So I hail from Ottawa, Canada, a little place a little further away than a little further away from you. And but it's a beautiful day here. The sun's just starting to come up. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to enjoy your beautiful country. So I thought I'd share a little bit of my some of the pictures from around here. Now you're probably thinking, wait, I know Canada. That is not Canada. Canada is winter. Um, so obligatory. Yes, there's a lot of winter, and sometimes my front yard looks like this, with a little bit of extra snow in my front yard. Uh, but before we get going, there's three things I want to talk to you today about. One is web perf. I would be amiss if I didn't talk to you about why it's important to talk about performance. And as we talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about service workers. Service workers are great, and we're going to cover just a little bit about the basics of this. And then finally, the meat of what we want to talk about. I want to show you some really clever ways that we can use service workers to improve performance and the media experience. Um, if you want to put it in a different way, though, at the end of this, I'm hoping that you can walk away with something to impress your boss, something to impress your coworkers about some new knowledge that you have, and ultimately something to impress your mom, how you made the internet better, how you made the experiences that she has on a regular basis that much better in her life. So let's get to it. So let's talk about web performance. At the end of the day, your users are just want to do basic things on the internet. They just want to upload the photos from last night or buy a birthday present for their mom. They want to check the news. But unfortunately, and I'm sure everybody in the audience has probably seen this yourself, the experience on the internet is not always the same. Sometimes, maybe a lot of the time, it's a lot slower than we experience. Uh, you may have, if you've spent time or heard people talk about web performance, you may have seen a graph like this. And this is a page load time graph. That is, if I took all the people that visited my site and stacked up all of their experiences, how long did it take to load a web page? I added them all up for each people that took 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 6 seconds. You'll get this little curve like this histogram. And from this, you can see where do most people experience the web. Now, there's been a few studies out there, notably Cliff Crocker, almost 10 years ago, kicked this off when he discovered that at Walmart, hey, performance, if I improve performance, my conversion rate, people that actually visited my site went up. I can improve my business by improving performance on a website. So that's one of the big takeaways that I want to make sure you leave with to impress your boss. And if you're needing statistics, there's a great website, wpostats.com, that allows you to show, hey, why do I want to spend time rebuilding some parts of this web application? Why do I want to improve the web performance? Because it's going to make business better. You're going to improve the business's top line, and improve the user experience at the same time. And why does this happen? Well, part of it has to do with the psychology of experience. There's a lot that goes on that we're easily distracted. Our lizard brain, if it's taking too long for a web page to load, then we're off thinking about something else. Or as we're going to check out, the bus comes and put my phone away. So there's a lot that goes on. And then unfortunately, I don't have time to talk about this. There's a lot of great research coming out these days about the psychology of decision. And there was just an article, I put it down here in the bottom, article that was on Hacker News just yesterday, more about the illusions that happen when the brain interacts. A lot of great stuff in there. And there's this magic number around 2 seconds. The number of studies have showed that between 1 and 2 seconds, you've got time to engage the user. After that, there's this quick drop off of user engagement. People fall away, do other things. And often, as developers, we often think about everybody being just like us. Everybody's got the Samsung S8, and it's really fast. I'm at my office, and it's great. Why isn't the rest of the web experience just like mine? Well, the reason is that, well, there's a great diversity in users out there. And so when we're talking about how to improve the performance, a lot of it has to do with building some empathy. I just recently did a road trip with my family. This is what we Canadians do for vacation. We do a lot of driving. Very big country, not a lot of people. I think in Nigeria you have 5 to 6 times more people than in Canada. So we're very spread out. So we do a lot of driving. And while we were driving, my internet connection, I work at home. I get spoiled when I'm always at home on Ethernet and it works. But in the real world, I had 1 bar of signal and maybe 1,000 millisecond round trip time. It was painful. Tried visiting Disney's website about the new Incredibles, and it took a long time to load. And why is that? Well, you look right down the bottom, 29 megabytes. Thank you, Disney, for a very slow web page, 29 megabytes. But it looks nice. So what can we do about this? Well, like I said, we're just going to screen through this, but 3 quick takeaways to look great and, to your boss. 1, let's measure performance and find ways to empathize with your customers. As we look to empathize, we're looking to use other technology to help solve these tech challenges. So this is where service workers are going to be a big help. And ultimately, as we improve performance, we're going to help grow your business. So this is number 1, how are you going to look awesome to your boss? You're going to tell them, hey, improve performance on the site, I can drive more revenue. I can help get more users to adopt our site. So let's talk about service workers. Now, if only I can add a little bit of JavaScript that said, make my site faster. So add more JavaScript. It'll make my site faster? Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever said that in the history of time. It's an unfortunate state that JavaScript always takes the website and makes it slower. And part of that is, of course, that when we load JavaScript, we have to download the content, and the browser has to then evaluate it, and then execute it, and then run it on the page. And every time that you refresh a page, you have to do this all over and over again. So service workers, while they are JavaScript, are slightly different. Service workers are, you may, and for those that didn't put up your hand, this is a lot of really great technology. It's taken a number of years to really push through, and it fundamentally has changed a lot of the ways that we think about building a web app. And there's a number of big tenets around it to help us bridge the native app experience and the web experience. And the great part about it right now is that here we are in 2018, and we've got great support across the browser spectrum that between Edge, Chrome, and even Safari, we've got great browser experiences that have service worker support. So service workers, what are they? Well, they allow us to run JavaScript in the background in a separate from your web page. And if you look at them, it's really simple. All I need to do, one line of JavaScript, I register my own JavaScript there. So the service worker is now registered, and that JavaScript can now do stuff even when the web page isn't there. If you look at the waterfall, you'll notice right down at the bottom, you'll see my service worker .js running. Great. You also notice how far away it's loaded after the page is loaded up. Now this is because the way that service workers are built, they're intended to interact with the page, but they intended not to block the page loading. So think of this service worker as this JavaScript that runs, and once it's loaded, it can interact with all of the requests coming through the site. So all of the fetch requests for JavaScript, CSS, images, all of those get pushed, get the opportunity to go through service worker, and the service worker can then decide, do I want to go somewhere else? Or more often the case, you probably will see, it goes and says, hey, I can put stuff in the cache. And this is important for when you're taking your web page and trying to make it more like an app. Could I give you an offline experience? Can I download all of the parts of my web page, all the images, the CSS, and kind of keep them locally so that I can make it available when the user is in an offline environment or when they don't have internet requests? There are a bunch of events. The three main ones that you'll most likely use are the top one, install. So the event gets fired when the service worker is first installed or when it's upgraded. The activate, when the person loads the web page and then connects to your service worker that's been running constantly. And the most common one is this bottom one, fetch. Fetch is the event that will be fired every time that your resources on the web page are being requested by the browser. And you get to then intercept them and change them. There are, of course, you've got a local cache that you can access inside of the service worker that you can use to, that's different than the browser's main cache, and you can use this to build up your application. Different browsers have different limits. Chrome has a much larger limit, whereas Safari only has 50 megabytes available. But this allows you to put stuff into this cache that the browser web page is not requested, and have it ready so that maybe later on you can make a request for it and do a match. So there's a lot of things that we can do with service workers. Now there's a lot of great web content out there. I encourage you to take a look at it and think of it as we can do a lot of the things that we've wanted to do to improve the web, but perhaps we can't reorganize our whole website. Well, we can perhaps deploy a service worker as a safety net to do some of this work. Or in more advanced uses, we can start to replace some of the functionality with service workers so that we can do things like progressive image delivery, bundle splitting, and prefetching. So let me share with you back to this problem that we had about this 30 megabyte web page from Disney. Disney, sometimes it makes me hurt, 30 megabytes. So I'm going to go register my service worker, and then I'm going to add a fetch event. So I want to intercept all requests coming through, and I'm going to filter so to make sure that I'm only doing this on image requests. So I'm looking at the event.request. The request object gives me all the details the browser is going to look at, and looking at the destination. The destination is on the web page, and is it an image? Is it a CSS? Is it a video? And I'm going to take a look at the URL, and then I'm going to be able to change where the browser actually goes. So my event dot respond with. And in my respond with, I'm creating a new fetch. Now, if you aren't familiar, fetch is the same thing as Ajax of the old days. Anytime that you want to make a browser request, that in JavaScript code, you used to call it Ajax or XHR. Now the formal spec is called fetch, and it's a promise-based event system. So you respond with a new fetch. Now, in this example here, I just took the URL from the request and sent it back in a new fetch object. So I really didn't do anything of interest. So I wanted to make my images and video faster. So yeah, I'm going to use my faster URL. Okay, what does that really do? What does that faster URL really do? Let's talk about service workers for image and video performance. So I've got a demo site, and I'm going to give you the links later on. I wasn't confident about the experience here, so I've put in the demo links, and I've got some screenshots for the demo. There's also another irony here, is that here's the web page loaded, and you see this nice image here, and you see that at the bottom, this image was 247 kilobytes. Now, what if I was on a stressful network environment? What if I was on cellular? And of course, this is where the irony is, like, I can't demo being on cellular while also presenting over the internet. So here we go. This is the page before. And I'm going to reload this page. And you'll notice at the bottom, we took that image and we brought it down to 10 kilobytes with my service worker. How did I do this? Notice at the top, I'm using Chrome's developer tools. I changed to slow 3G. That's in the top right-hand corner. You can change the different performance characteristics, emulate browsers, emulate different devices, in this case, emulate different network environments. So just by changing to slow 3G, I was able to reduce the bytes that were requested by the browser. That's amazing. How did I do this? Well, it's actually really simple. All I did in my service worker is I took that image and added the W320. This W320 changed the dimensions of that image. And so why am I doing this? I'll breeze through this really quickly here. The main reason that we're doing this is because I've done a number of studies, and I'll be sharing some more studies very shortly. The size of your images impacts the size of the download. This seems obvious, so I did a number of studies looking at the packet retry count, and you can see that if I move from 1,000 pixels down to 300 pixels, I've saved a ton of bytes. And that's exactly what we did here. We just changed the resize down to 300 bytes. There's a second impact, which is as you change the image, the number of bytes that are sent across is one thing, but the browser also has to inflate that into memory, into the browser. So every pixel that you have to draw has to be inflated with 4 bits, red, green, blue, and alpha. And those multiply out every time. So this image is 1280 now turns into 2.5 megabytes. And that 2.5 megabytes multiplied with all the other images takes a lot of extra memory. So by shrinking it down, you've actually saved the browser a ton of memory. Okay, I see my time is up, and I believe that we started a tad late, so I'll just give you one quick couple things here. How am I doing this? Well, I'm looking at the save data header, the connection type, and even the device memory. I can do this by looking at the browser and see what the browser's environment is. And that is what I was triggering on to change the characteristics of the image. And these are standard APIs. And unfortunately, if you want to take a look at more, you can turn on save data yourself. And I'm going to skip right to the end here. There is some other goodies, but you can take a look at these demos yourself, basically where we can resize based on the dimensions, based on the network environment, but also we can do some clever things like progressive demos. And these have been great results for many other companies looking at service workers and progressive web apps. And this is a great way to improve the user experience, not just using service workers for offline caching, but also for reducing the number of pixels, the amount of memory that's being used on the user's device, and also then saving bytes substantially. So I thank you very much for your time. I realize that we're out and there's a lot of great things I wanted to share. So thank you. And take a look at these slides later on. You can get some more of the demos. I'm Colin. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. So we have some questions. What's questions? This talk was about performance. So there should be questions. I mean, you registered for Jump and the page was loading for 5 minutes. Come on. There should be questions. No questions?
Well, one thing, if there's no questions, I want to share one little tidbit, which I was hoping to share as well. I want to do a little bit of an announcement here, because one of the challenges that you have is, hey, the save data, who's using save data on their data saver mode on their browser? So I see a few hands. Unfortunately, it's only used around 3% of the time. It's not used as widely as we expected. And a lot of times, 20% of the time, the users on cellular are actually laptops tethering. So there's a new API we're going to announce here. I'm giving you a sneak preview here, which is a Cloudinary Net Info API that you can call in any browser, in any app, that will give you details about the user, about the performance of their network connection, so that you can make some decisions. So expect to hear some announcements about this coming up.
Hey, Colin, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you talked about service workers and improving performance. I'm a very vibrant user of Opera Mini. How do I actually, or is it possible for me to use service workers to build for applications that run on Opera Mini?
Yeah, so Opera Mini, I'll just go back to our table up here. Opera Mini, unfortunately, is a proxy browser, or most part is a proxy browser. And that means that a lot of the work is done on the server side. Now, there are different conditions, Ario. So Opera Mini is unfortunately, because it's doing work on server side, then it's not bringing that content. Now, there's some talks about how do we address this? How do we bring the experience to Opera Mini users? And the objective here is to basically create a consistent experience across all users, those that have more or less JavaScript capabilities. So stay tuned is the answer there. Right on. Any other questions, thoughts? All right. I realize it's just before lunch. I do appreciate your time today.
All right.
And if you've got any other questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter.
Thank you very much, Colin. Let's give him a round of applause. All right, so just before a break, I mean, we're going to have a break soon because I'm sure you guys are tired of sitting. Now, the first speaker for today talked about building Node.js APIs using serverless on Azure.